I was a very difficult actor to cast, going up for juvenile roles. I'm not going to get those parts. And I sort of figured that out after a while.
As he prepared to reveal his most intimate struggle to date, Oscar-winning actor Charlton Heston appeared in front of the camera for the final time in 2002. Hearts throughout America would be broken as he started to speak. Although Heston's life had been remarkable, spanning civil rights marches and Hollywood epics, his final message would expose his genuine nature. On October 4, 1923, Charlton Heston came into this world. While some credit Evanston, Illinois, he said his birthplace was in the adjacent No Man's Land, which is now part of Wilmette. His very name was muddled. His given name was John Charles Carter, although according to some accounts, he was identified as Charlton Carter not long after he was born. He came from an English and Scottish family with ties to the famous Clan Fraser. Little was expected of him by his parents, Russell Baines and Lila Carter. Russell was a sawmill worker and he was strapped for cash. The Charlton family uprooted from the bustling Chicago suburbs and settled in a little Michigan town named St. Helen when Charlton was a little boy. It was a stark contrast to city life. Charlton attended a little school with just 13 students. He didn't have many friends as he was the sole student in his grade. He made up his own adventures and stories based on his imagination. He would go on long walks in the woods, where he would fish and hunt. He became quite self-reliant and had a deep appreciation for nature as a result of his humble upbringing. He was 10 years old when his parents split up in 1933. Returning to Illinois, his mother gathered him and his brothers. She tied the knot with Chester Heston a few years down the road. At this point, Charlton's reputation began to shift. After his mother adopted the surname of her new husband, Charlton started going by Heston. He took the name Charlton from his grandma's side of the family and used it professionally because he liked it. His real name was Charles, but he was still known as Chuck by his friends and relatives. While a high school student at New Trier in Winnetka, Illinois, Charlton discovered his passion for acting. Initially, acting provided him with a means of evading the challenging aspects of his life. According to him, it gave him the freedom to become someone else. Among his many school plays, one of which was Pigant, in which he excelled, he labored tirelessly. His instructors saw his enthusiasm and pushed him to maintain his pursuit. Although Charlton had a sporting background, his true passion was acting. Everyone was raving about him by the time he graduated. Charlton attended Northwestern University on a theater scholarship in 1941. He had accomplished a great deal. He devoted a great deal of time to performing in plays, honing his art, and expanding his knowledge of it. Not only were these plays professionally staged, but they also garnered interest from Chicago's theater community. Concurrently, the Globe was undergoing profound changes as a result of Globe War II, which contributed to the solemn mood on campus. Despite this, Charlton never wavered from his dream of being an actor. Meeting in a drama class at Northwestern University in 1941 was the beginning of Charlton Heston's adventure into love and war. He worked evenings as an elevator operator to make ends meet when he was a scholarship student, and he was just 17 years old. The stunning black curls and large expressive eyes of Lydia, a fellow acting student, kept drawing his attention even though he was fatigued from his job. Their initial encounter was not enchanting. Lydia first believed Charlton was conceited and haughty, but their dynamic changed as she sought his acting help. Lydia was difficult to win over, so Charlton pursued her for the following 3 years. In the face of the impending anarchy of World War II, her ambitious nature made her unwilling to accept the role of mere sidekick. Greensboro, North Carolina was the site of their wedding on March 17, 1944. The wedding, which took place in a chapel with only 2 hours' notice, was quick and uncomplicated. At the time, Lydia's outfit, a purple suit and a flower-patterned hat, had cost $50. Despite this, she managed to save up enough money to purchase a Christmas present for Charlton by selling her suit, hat, and even her bag 2 years later for $10. They gave each other that type of sacrifice. At the age of 21, Charlton enlisted in the military and served as a gunner and radio operator on a B-25 bomber. The remote, frigid Alaskan islands were his posting. His work was risky, since he had to keep lines of communication open during missions and fire the plane's cannons to ward off attackers. He often flew combat missions over northern Japan, encountering severe weather conditions and limited visibility. It only takes one slip-up to create havoc. On one occasion, he was hurt on base when an ambulance ran him over after he slipped on the ice. He spent some time in a wheelchair as a result of this, but it didn't dampen his desire to serve in the military. Despite his expectations, he was never a part of the Great Invasion of Japan. Later in adulthood, Charlton acknowledged that he was thankful for the atomic bombings since they ended the war in 1945 and probably saved his life. After the war ended, Charlton and Lydia uprooted their lives and headed for New York in pursuit of their acting aspirations. They had it tough. For $30 a month, they occupied a cramped flat in an undesirable area. In order to take baths, they had to boil water on the stove as there was no hot water available. They pretended to be artists and models so that they might make a living. On several occasions, they went hungry. On occasion, Lydia was unemployed while Charlton was employed. On other occasions, the situation was reversed. But they remained united, laughing and loving through every challenge. This all changed in 1947 when Charlton landed a bit part in a Broadway production of Antony and Cleopatra. It wasn't a major role, he played the part of Proculus, but the production was a huge thing, starring Godfrey Turrell and Catherine Cornell. It was a positive development for Charlton. He learned a lot and gained confidence from performing among such seasoned performers. The Hestons finally felt some stability after all those years of turmoil when the show played for a few months. In 1950, at the age of 26, Charlton Heston had his big break in Hollywood with the noir picture Dark City. The part came about by complete coincidence when Montgomery Clift, who had been cast as the lead, withdrew days before production started. Quickly stepping into the realm of professional filmmaking, Heston jumped in. The project, however, was not without its bumps. Important scenes had to be rewritten since the budget was lowered by 20% midway through production. In his relentless pursuit of self-promotion, Heston put in countless hours. In order to memorize fresh lines, he even forsook his trailer. Elizabeth Taylor and Viva Anders, two veteran performers, took notice of his commitment and became his instructors. The physical strain he endured while filming his debut is one of its most striking aspects. Heston was adamant on performing his own stunts in a pivotal battle sequence. He broke 2 ribs and dislocated his shoulder as a result of the choice, but he lied about it to keep things moving along. His performance was more genuine because of the anguish, which was shown in many close-ups. Despite the setbacks, Dark City was a commercial triumph, propelling Heston to celebrity with its $2.1 million total. His career took off 2 years later when he had a pivotal role in William Wyler's The Greatest Show on Earth. His casting process was just as out of the ordinary as the film. Wyler gave Heston the part of Brad Braden, the circus manager, after seeing him bravely handle an elephant during a screen test. More than 1,400 humans, many animals, and 85 train cars of machinery were involved in the enormous production of the picture. For 3 months, Heston lived like a circus performer and worked with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus's employees and performers to be ready. A lion snatched from its cage and a trapeze mishap that hung him 40 feet in the air were 2 of the serious threats he encountered. Not only did it win Best Picture at the Oscars, but it also grossed over $36 million. Both audiences and critics lauded Heston's performance, which cemented his status as a leading man. Nonetheless, he was briefly hospitalized for dehydration after the extremely hard 10-month filming. When asked about his career, Heston said that The Greatest Show on Earth was the picture that catapulted him to stardom and set the stage for his memorable performances. The dynamic between Heston and Wyler was important to his professional development. Actors knew Wyler as a demanding coach who would test them to their limits. He famously had Heston rehearse a sequence 47 times in one day on the filming of The Greatest Show on Earth, which exhausted him. The two became closer as a result of this demanding procedure. As an actor, Heston was greatly influenced by Wyler, who had faith in his abilities. Even Heston's nutrition and exercise routine were counseled by him. He notably suggested a combination of raw eggs, wheat germ, and brewer's yeast for energy every day. The 1956 release of the Ten Commandments was the zenith of their working relationship. Given his lack of background in biblical epics, casting Heston as Moses was a daring decision. Wyler had Heston spend 6 weeks in the Sinai desert studying ancient Hebrew and carving stone tablets as a means of preparation. At the time of its production, the picture had the highest budget of $13 million. Heston devoted 3 months of his life to growing a beard and hair for the part, opting not to utilize synthetic hair or beards for the sake of authenticity. Because a camera malfunction ruined the first take of the iconic scene in which Moses parted the Red Sea, the production team reshot the sequence twice. It took more than 360,000 gallons of water and a year to perfect the second effort. While filming in Egypt, Heston narrowly avoided being crushed by a 1,000-pound stone prop. Impressively, the film grossed $122.7 million, which translates to more than $1.2 billion in today's dollars. His performance touched so many that some thought he was born to portray Moses. Another record-breaking picture starring Heston Ben-Hur came out in 1959. With the help of more than 50,000 individuals, it took over a year to shoot. Heston lost weight and studied chariot driving for 15 weeks in preparation for the part. Shot over the course of 10 weeks despite the extreme danger involved, the chariot racing scene is now considered a cinematic classic. While filming one stunt, Heston was nearly crushed by horses and tossed off his chariot. A dislocated jaw and damaged ligaments were among the traumas he sustained, yet he persisted nonetheless. The mysterious death of a stuntman on set was only made public after many years had passed. Heston took home 2 Oscars, Best Picture and Best Actor, along with the record-setting 11 other accolades the film received. Heston claimed the experience was more valuable than the $1,146,940 in earnings. His films were more than merely successful, they revolutionized the industry. The epic tales of the Ten Commandments and Ben-Hur were brought to life with the help of tens of thousands of animals, extras, and costumes. More than most full-length features of the period, the chariot race in Ben-Hur cost $4 million. Playing Michelangelo in 1965's The Agony and the Ecstasy required Heston to study art and sculpture. Even the Sistine Chapel had to be meticulously recreated for the film, which took 18 months of work. Massive combat sequences involving over 7,000 people and 10,000 horses were directed by him in El Cid, 1961. At a cost of $17 million, equivalent to more than $150 million today, the production of King of Kings, 1963, shattered records with the biggest film set ever constructed in Europe. In every part he played, Charlton Heston brought an electric intensity that made him more than just an actor. His 1968 science fiction classic, Planet of the Apes, catapulted him to stardom. The shocking and memorable finale of the film stunned viewers. George Taylor, who played the lead, discovers the destroyed Statue of Liberty and discovers that he has always been on Earth. Despite the historical significance of this turn, Heston nearly turned down the part. To him, the concept of sentient apes was completely absurd. Reading the original manuscript and a personal visit from the producer were necessary to persuade him otherwise. Heston poured his heart and soul into the part after accepting, to ensure his body language appeared natural. Particularly in situations where Taylor was unable to talk, he researched the movements of monkeys. Even at the age of 43, he managed to pull off daring acts like a 65-foot fall, which most people would have died trying. He looked like an astronaut who had been stuck for hours thanks to his time spent in the cosmetics chair. The film was so successful that it spawned a number of sequels. Heston felt his character ought to perish, even urging Taylor to detonate a doomsday bomb on the entire globe, despite his brief appearance in the sequel. That's just what transpired, adding a sinister and memorable turn to the story. After all these years, the United States finally recognized the original film, honored by the National Film Registry for its historical and cultural significance. Heston demonstrated that he could also direct a catastrophe film with 1974's Earthquake. In the film, a huge earthquake ripped away Los Angeles. A new sound system called Sense Surround was utilized in cinemas to make it feel more realistic. It caused the seats to vibrate as if an actual earthquake had occurred. Even the vibrations caused damage to some older cinemas. Walking through a flooded, debris-filled garage with live electrical wires was just one of several stunts that Heston performed in addition to acting. Even after suffering several injuries, including a dislocated shoulder that required stitches, he persisted in his task. Despite its astronomical production costs, the picture was a smashing hit, grossing millions and paving the way for future catastrophe flicks. Among Heston's many beloved westerns, Will Penny, 1968, stands out. He had a small but profoundly moving role as an elderly cowboy in it. As part of his training, he spent time on a genuine cattle ranch, where he learned the ropes of ranch life and how to herd cattle. Real cattle were utilized in the film, which resulted in some risky situations on set. A more recent film, The Mountain Men, 1980, featured Heston as a roughhouse trapper. Wearing grubby, realistic clothing and braving sub-zero conditions, he refused to romanticize the part. He persevered through the filming while experiencing hypothermia. Heston continued to push the envelope in action-adventure flicks. He did his own stunts, such driving through a wall of fire in 1971's The Omega Man, a thriller about the last man on Earth. In his role as a pilot in Skyjacked, 1972, he put himself in harm's way by filming sequences at high altitude and training in a genuine flight simulator. He had stings and welts when filming Naked Jungle, 1954, which included an army of actual ants. Thanks to his fearlessness and commitment, Charlton Heston became a household name in every genre, including science fiction, historical dramas, westerns, action-adventures, and catastrophe flicks. The political career of Charlton Heston. A firm conviction in civil rights was the springboard that propelled Charlton Heston into politics. He dared to speak out against racism in the 1950s and 1960s, when other Hollywood performers chose to remain silent. He became a legend on August 28, 1963, when he joined the March on Washington. Heston delivered an impassioned statement at the Lincoln Memorial prior to Dr. King's renowned "I Have a Dream" speech, all the while walking with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and other leaders, holding a placard reading, "All men are created equal." Despite the heat and threats, he chose to go. Heston emphasized in his address that the United States of America was never supposed to be a place where just certain might enjoy freedom. There was more to Heston's struggle for racial rights. In 1961, he bravely risked his safety to protest segregated eateries in Oklahoma City. As a member of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, he collaborated closely with Dr. King to advocate for equal treatment in the entertainment industry. His decisions demonstrated his dedication to equality, Heston said. He said no to the major role in The Defiant Ones because he thought a black actor should have gotten the part instead. Heston refused to remain silent when others were unjustly victimized and opposed the Hollywood blacklist, which sought out individuals accused of communism. Nevertheless, Heston's stance on politics evolved as time went on. Many of his liberal acquaintances were astonished to see him endorse Richard Nixon in 1972, a sign that he was beginning to separate himself from the Democratic Party in the 1970s. Heston further by saying he thought the Democrats had become too liberal. Having witnessed political conflicts personally during his tenure as president of the Screen Actors Guild, he frequently stated, "I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me." This change manifested itself in his views. At the same time, he had disagreements with other famous Hollywood people such as Jane Fonda on the Vietnam War. Heston had completely bought into Republican ideology by the 1980s. His support for Ronald Reagan grew to the point where he was instrumental in Reagan's 2 presidential campaigns. At a press conference in 1986, Heston made news for ripping up his Democratic Party registration card, publicly announcing that he had formally quit the party. In the late 90s and early 00s, Charlton Heston became the National Rifle Association's NRA president, marking the zenith of his conservative advocacy odyssey. His record-breaking tenure as president began in 1998, when he was 74 years old, and continued for 5 years in a row. Under Heston's leadership, the National Rifle Association's membership skyrocketed from 2.8 million to more than 4.3 million, thanks to the star power he brought to the organization. During his presidency, heated arguments about gun regulation were trending nationally, and Heston's passionate speeches and daring actions galvanized those who favored the Second Amendment. At the National Rifle Association's annual conference in Charlotte, North Carolina, in May of 2000, he had one of his most memorable experiences. Standing over his head with a facsimile of a weapon in his hands, Heston proclaimed, "From my cold, dead hands." This was more than just a phrase. It sent a strong message to the people who want stronger gun control measures. It became a rallying cry for those who believed in the inherent right to bear arms in the United States. There were bumper stickers and T-shirts using that classic image of Heston brandishing the weapon. Theatrical speeches weren't Heston's only work. In his testimony before Congress, he maintained that the Second Amendment guaranteed more than only the right to bear arms. It also guaranteed the right to freedom. He thought that teaching children about gun safety through programs like Eddie Eagle was preferable than imposing more regulations. The NRA's clout in politics increased dramatically during his tenure. More money went into elections, and they worked hard to elect officials who supported gun rights. Using his celebrity to rally supporters and sway election results, Heston himself went on the road. Many attribute George W. Bush's 2000 triumph to his ability to galvanize voters in crucial states. Although he was outspoken on the subject of gun rights, Heston also addressed other topics, such as political correctness, which he dubbed tyranny with manners. In a 1999 lecture he gave at Harvard Law School, Heston warned that free speech and traditional values were under danger from a cultural war. Some saw him as a hero, and others as a villain because of his statements. Opponents saw him as too mired in the past, while supporters viewed him as a courageous champion for American liberty. The 2003 White House visit was Heston's last public appearance. The highest civilian distinction in the United States, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, was bestowed to him by President George W. Bush. Heston emphasized the importance of standing up for one's beliefs and his dedication to liberty in his speech. Charlton Heston's impact remained strong even after he retired. His famous statement, "From my cold, dead hands," is still a rallying cry for those who support the right to bear arms. Iconic actor Charlton Heston, best known for his iconic parts in Ben-Hur and The Ten Commandments, broke the news on August 9, 2002. He revealed that he has Alzheimer's disease signs at the age of 78. The news was made at a press conference held at the Beverly Hills Hotel through a pre-recorded video. It was already a powerful image. 3 years previously, Heston had stood tall at an NRA gathering, gun raised, exclaiming, "From my cold, dead hands." The choice to reveal his condition demonstrated a new type of bravery, though. Open discussion of Alzheimer's disease was taboo in those days. Heston addressed his supporters head-on in his video, doing so with humility and candor. His voice was powerful despite his frail appearance. The man started off by stating, "My physicians have recently told me I may have a neurological disorder whose symptoms are consistent with Alzheimer's disease." However, he refused to let this define him. With unwavering resolve, he said, I'm neither giving up nor giving in. Heston skillfully injected comedy into his message by drawing on his renowned role as Moses. I can part the Red Sea, but I can't part with you, which is why I won't exclude you from this stage in my life. This sweet and light-hearted comment brought back memories of the fearless and certain guy they had known all along. Additionally, he wished for everyone to comprehend the potential changes. His remarks, so genuine and easygoing, helped put the sickness into perspective. If you see a little less spring in my step, if your name fails to leap to my lips, you'll know why. And if I tell you a funny story for the second time, please laugh anyway. While quoting Shakespeare, he said, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep." Heston ended his message with a powerful thought. I believe I'm still the fighter that Dr. King and JFK and Ronald Reagan knew, but it's a fight I must someday call a draw. These words brought back memories of his incredible life, including his work in movies, his fight for civil rights, and his friendships with great leaders. The late Charlton Heston resided in a stunning Beverly Hills mansion for the most of his life. Building it after his breakthrough role in Ben-Hur and having it designed by the illustrious William S. Beckett, it was no ordinary mansion. Bold rooflines, glass walls, and a magnificent two-story library adorned the over 5,000 square foot mansion. At the age of 84, Heston died away on April 5, 2008, in the comfort of his own home. Bravely, he had battled Alzheimer's for 6 long years. Lydia, his wife of 64 years, was present by his side as he passed away. He was a global loss. While Nancy Reagan recalled him as an on-screen and off-screen hero, President George W. Bush praised him as an honest and upright guy. The funeral was placed in Pacific Palisades St. Matthew's Episcopal Church 1 week later on April 12th. Olivia de Havilland and Arnold Schwarzenegger were among the renowned guests who came to say farewell. The support of Lydia Clark Heston remained constant throughout his life's highs and lows. During the civil rights movement and other significant occasions, she was there to support Heston. Their love and collaboration was on full display, as Lydia remained by Heston's side throughout his illness. Over the course of their 64-year marriage, they were each other's rock and helped each other achieve their goals.